everybody, Johnny here, and today I'm going to teach you all how to make faster chord changes, and I'm hopefully going to help you fix something that I think probably maybe most beginners do and they don't even realize it. So let's dive right into this. I'm going to start with the end in mind here. I want to show you what a good fast, clean chord change looks like, and I'm going to show you what's going on. Okay, so if I take a C chord, just a plain old C chord, and I switch to say a G chord, okay, and let's go to the G chord where, you know, the fat G, where we're using all the fingers, all four fingers here. When I go from C to G, right here, the perspective that you can't see right now is that underneath my fingers, I haven't pushed my fingers down. I haven't fretted the chord yet, okay? So I'm going from C to G, and then I lay my fingers down. So the whole concept here, this is it in a nutshell, really, is that when you make a chord change here, you form C, right? And you go to G, most of the time what people do is they put one finger down at a time. And that's turning a one move change into a 1, 2, 3, 4 move change, okay? So if you do this for every single chord, you're basically slowing your chord changes down. So let's back up to step one, and I'm gonna show you how to get to the place where you're making one move changes, okay? Let's use C for the example again. What most people do when they learn the chord, which is, you know, it makes total logical sense, is to go 1, 2, 3, right? You put your fingers down in order. 1, 2, 3 makes total logical sense, except for when you're playing guitar, it does not make total logical sense, okay? The reason, and this is my argument, is that if you start here, you're learning your chord, you put your finger down, you put your finger down. Most of the time when you're learning, you're doing a down strum. You're picking from this string, the A string. So you can't actually even physically start your strum, 1, 2, 3, until the last finger comes down. Okay, so that right there, that's what most people do. And again, like I probably did it when I was starting out too, but I suggest that you experiment with switching the order of your fingers and start with the bass note first. So what I mean by that is, if we start with C, if you're gonna, you know, you've got to learn the chord first, right? And you got to do them one finger at a time. There's no real way around that, okay? So setting your fingers down, like I was suggesting in the very beginning, that's later after you know the chord, okay? So I'm going to get you there, don't worry. So we've got third finger. So we're reversing how we probably have been forming the chord here. We're going to go third finger, second finger, open string for C, and then the fretted note, first finger here. I'm not teaching you the chord, I'm just showing you how to fret the chord, okay? So in this sense, so if I go cold from no chord at all, and I start with my third finger, my right hand is going to start the strum after I put my fingers down. So I'm kind of folding my fingers this way versus folding my fingers this way, right? So 3, 2, 1, down. So this, I can get my strum going first. So let me give you an example on some other open chords like G and D and some of these other things, okay? So if I play G, I see a lot of people when they play this big G like this, or even the one where you've got your third finger on the high E string there like that, on a cowboy G. Either way, I see people fret these top notes, then they put finger 1 down, then they put finger 2 down, and then they make their strum. Well, it just makes more sense to go put my fingers down like this. Okay? All in the back of your mind, you're thinking once you get the chord shape starts to get a little more familiar under your fingers, that these moves should happen before you hit the chord change. So again, remember what the phrase is, a one move change. A lot of times with A minor, what I see people do, this is going to be a 3-finger move here. So we go finger 1, 2, 3, right? And then they start the strum. My suggestion here, maybe start with finger 2, finger 3, finger 1, you know, kind of lay them down like that. And then this is the exercise that you would want to work on once your fingers get a little bit familiar with these chord changes, because again, setting them down one finger at a time is probably never going to work to help you get to a fast, clean chord change. But what you could do once you get used to all this stuff is I have my in-person students float their fingers. So once I see a muscle memory sort of set in for like say a chord like a C chord, I'll have them float, okay? And I don't know if you can see this, but I'm not actually pushing down yet, okay? But I've formed a C chord. So again, if I took my fingers away from the fretboard, you could see that my fingers are like kind of in a C shape. Even if I went like this, my fingers kind of look like they're in a D shape, right? So D chord, C chord, fingers aren't down yet, right? Drop my fingers. So this is the exercise. Try your best to float your fingers. You're going to try to form the chord above the strings. And this is the disqualifier. If you touch the strings with the tips of your fingers, you have to start over. So you got to kind of like shake your hand out, erase the memory. The reason being is because it's going to trigger a muscle memory, okay? So really try hard to float your fingers over the chord, and once you think you have it, drop your fingers down. And if you can consistently go from a cold, no chord, to a formed chord in midair, again, not fretting, and then drop your fingers, which I didn't do it right that time, but drop your fingers in the correct spot, your muscle memory is sort of programmed in, and I would bet that your chord changes are going to get faster, okay? So again, here's a G chord, not touching the chord, I'm not fretting the chord, I'm pushing down on the strings, floating, dropping, right? A minor, floating, dropping my hand, okay? So you guys try this. If you're an absolute beginner, start with just forming the chord reverse of how you probably are forming it. Don't form it from the highest strings down low to the thick strings. Form it from the bass note of the lowest strings up. That way you can start to make your strum, okay? And then once this starts to get familiar for your hand and you feel like you've got, say, some of these chords underneath your fingers, then try to get to the place where you're forming the chord in midair before you drop the chord, okay? One more time, if I go from a G chord, I go to a D chord, my fingers are forming the chord in midair, dropping my fingers down, okay? If I go to an A minor chord from there, I'm forming the chord in midair, right? Dropping my fingers. If I go to an E minor chord, which is fairly easy, and actually, if I'm to be honest with you, you guys should probably, with the muscle memory thing where you float, I think that's probably the easiest chord to start with. Just do an E minor chord because it's just two fingers, right? You can, for E minor, you can use these two fingers, 2 and 3, right? Just hover them over the strings, drop, hover, drop. Or you could, some people play E minor with index finger and second finger. So hover, drop, okay? So start with that. And if you can get that floating exercise down, I would bet that you probably are going to be making faster chord changes and on to playing songs more quickly. And if this content was helpful for you, I would be very grateful if you would consider liking and subscribing. And until the next lesson, good luck with fast chord changes.